Good evening and welcome to the first session of the Stress Management Technique series. The Small Business Development Center is a nonprofit organization that supports the evolution of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises with training, mentorship, networking, and funding opportunities. Under the umbrella of our flagship funding program, we have special initiatives that are designed to address a number of critical issues in the market, such as climate change, export barriers, gender inequality, food insecurity, chronic diseases, and mental disorders. As it relates to mental disorders, according to Forbes magazine, 72% of entrepreneurs are directly or indirectly affected by mental health issues. This is the primary reason we created the Stress Management Technique series for persons who own and lead small businesses. Our first presenter, Garth Roll, attended the Mount Thompson All-Age School, the Government High School, and Alabama A&M University, where he obtained a Bachelor of Science degree in Food Science and Technology, as well as a Master of Science degree in Food Microbiology. Mr. Roll's career path took him to the Department of Agriculture, to Purity Bakery, where he served as production manager, operations manager, and then as general manager. After Purity Bakery, Mr. Roll advanced his career to Tropical Shipping, where he served as the port manager, regional manager, and then as Atlantic Caribbean Line Port Director. Mr. Roll currently serves as the senior pastor of the Mount Hermon Baptist Church in Mount Thompson, Exuma, and he is the superintendent of the Bahamas Baptist Union. He is also married to Janice Roll, and they have two adult daughters, Kristen and Chriselle. Please welcome Garth Roll to speak on the topic, Worship because Worry is Not Good for Business.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bethel, for affording me the opportunity to speak this evening to your burgeoning group of businessmen and businesswomen. According to the, if I were to assume that the percentages for the Bahamas mirrors that of the United States, then the small businesses employ just under 50% of the total workforce. And that's remarkable, actually. And so this session really is a timely one as you seek to remain on the cutting edge, both mentally and physically, while continuing to increase the number of persons employed in this sector. Now, when you hear the topic, it sounds like a strange topic for businesses. Worship because worry is not good for business. So let's just start out by picking out those two words that we want to look out: worry and worship. It's very significant that we get an understanding of what those words actually means. Worry is nothing more than allowing one's mind to dwell on difficulty or trouble. Just allowing your mind to marinate on it. Excessive worry is going to harm you physically. It's going to harm you mentally. First of all, your mind and your body, while it is excessively worrying, it goes into overdrive as you constantly focus on what might happen, not what will happen, what might happen. I think all of us have experienced that when we were worrying about something, when the problem got solved, we sat back and we said, why was I hurting my head over something like that? It was not even necessary. Not only that, but you suffer with high anxiety. There's some people who, after going through a long periods of worry, they begin to panic. They have panic attacks. There are some people who actually feel as if there is this impending doom that's coming about them. And then this one probably is probably the worst of all. Excessive worriers, they see anyone and they see anything as a potential threat. The person seen as a threat is usually somebody who has something to offer. That's the tragedy. And because of this perceived threat, the threatened person is not given the leeway to be all that they can be. And guess what happened? All of a sudden now, this person who is this gem in the company is being stifled. They're being prevented from becoming this apex predator, producing more than they are being allowed to produce. Not only that, worrying affects your appetite, it affects your relationship, it affects your sleep, it affects your job performance. And so if all of these negative things are happening to your life, why do we worry? Not only does it affect us mentally, but it also affects us physically. Chronic worries can trigger stress-related problem. And when we begin to worry, we develop what is known as this fight or flight response, which is triggered from worrying. And when we begin to worry excessively, what happens? Your body naturally, it produces a stress hormone, and this stress hormone actually begins to boost your blood sugar level. And it serves as fuel for your body. And these excessive hormones that the body produces, they cause a physical reaction. For example, sometimes there are some people who actually have difficulty swallowing when they are stressed. There are some people who end up having a dizzy spell. It feels like they want to pass out. Your heartbeat begins to beat faster. You end up with headaches. You are unable to concentrate. You become irritable. Nobody wants to deal with you. You end up with muscle tension. You become nauseous. You have this nervous energy. You develop shortness of breath. All of these things are happening just because you are worrying. And so with everything that I've said so far, there is nothing good that can happen from worrying. Secondly, worship. Worship is nothing more than expressing reverence, expressing gratitude, expressing adoration to someone. And I said that this may seem like a strange topic for this setting, but it's not, because worship is not only something that's done on weekends, on Sabbath, or on Sunday. Worship is something that you can do during the work week. So how do we get then from worry to worship? And I want to just take 3 examples. 1, basketball. Anyone who plays basketball understands that if you are to shoot the ball correctly and be what is known as a pure shooter, someone like a Steph Curry, they tell you that your shoulders and your face must be squarely set towards the rim if you're gonna be a good shooter. Secondly, they say the same thing if you are a snowboarder, that if you wanted to turn to your left, your shoulders and your head must turn in the direction that you want to go. Thirdly, the same truth is evident on the track field. They say when you're running, you keep your eyes focused on the finish line. Don't look at the runner to your left or your right. Don't look at the runner who is behind you. Don't look at your family and friends who are in the stand. You focus on the finish line. What's my point? Your focus always determines the direction that you're going to go in. So when your heart and your mind are fixed on 20 different things that you have actually no control over, you are determining the direction of your life. And your direction cannot go, you cannot go in 20 different directions at the same time. When you try this, what happens? You are diluting the results because you cannot put 100% into 20 different things. And so as a result, you are not maximizing who you can be. Your focus determines your direction. What are you focusing on? And a scripture for me that has always been a part of my life has been this one. Isaiah chapter 26, verse number 3. It says this: He will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are stayed on him. Keep your minds focused on Jesus. That's where my stability comes from. That's what allows me to, even in the midst of travail and even in the midst of things falling apart seemingly, even in the midst of nothing seeming to work, I can stay calm and cool. You always move in the direction of the thing that you are focused on. And why is it important? I mean, why is that scripture such an important scripture? He will keep in perfect peace he whose mind is stayed on him. Well, who is Jesus? Jesus is this perfect person. He is this person who is all powerful. He is all knowing. You know, when you read the Gospels, you never find him confused. You never find him worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow, what I'm going to eat, or, you know, what I'm going to do with that sick person. No, he just walked up to whatever thing he was confronting, whatever that challenge was, he looked it squarely in the face. If it was death, he just says, come to life. It was sickness, he just said, be healed. So if that is who he is, he will keep in perfect peace he whose mind is stayed on him. Keep your eyes focused on him, because there's nothing in this life that he cannot overcome. Second thing that helps you to stay calm and not to worry is this: do not be anxious about anything. About anything. When sickness comes, don't be anxious about it. You know, death comes, yes, you miss people and they're your loved ones and they're gonna be gone, you know, but don't become all disheartened and, you know, lose it and like everything is going to hell in a heart. Do not be anxious about anything. When you begin to become anxious, when things has the potential to have you worrying, it says simply this: just go and pray about it. Because your worrying is not going to change the circumstances. You have to try and work your way out of this. And if you are worrying, your mind is not clear. You cannot be productive with a cluttered mind. But by prayer, you present whatever that problem is to him. And here's the last sentence: and the peace of God, which transcends understanding, will guard your heart. That's where people who have a deep-seated relationship with the Lord, that's why they're able to stay calm even in the midst of a storm. And this is not, I understand, this is not something you necessarily want to hear when you are wound up into worry, but God is offering another way, a gentler way, a kinder way, a way that leads to peace, and so that your mind is calm and you have the ability to think clearly. You have the ability now to come up with new ideas. And so when you find yourself beginning to meditate in the wrong direction, meditate on the wrong things, and by the way, that's what worry is. You are meditating on the problem as opposed to sitting down with a clear mind, and now you are focusing on and you are meditating on, how can I get myself out of this? Turn that inner monologue that you have going with yourself and turn it into a dialogue between you and God. Let him in by bringing your worry into like. Now, I've been in the private sector for almost 30 years. And during that time, what were the things that worried me the most? You know, you're in businesses, you're in business, you have your business, and you're trying to make sure that your business works, that it thrives. The greatest worry for me was declining sales, because my life was based on the company meeting its sales budget. The company meets its sales budget. Well, I can look forward to a wonderful time at the end of the business year because I get this big bonus. I can. So declining sales was the thing that worried me the most. Decline in the market size, or a bad economy comes on the scene, inflation comes up, and also you worrying about what are the things that's going to cause you not to be able to meet those sales targets, so that you can pay your mortgage to the bank, so that you can pay your staff, so that you can reinvest back into the business and buy more inventory. Declining sales was a big issue. The second major problem for me that caused me worries was having supply chain disruption. The inability to source raw material. For example, when I was at the bakery, we were going through sometimes 3 to 4 containers of flour per week. Well, if a hurricane came and we were unable to get in those containers for 1 week, our business was shut down. And so we have to either live constantly on building up inventory just so that you have stock on hand if the event something happened, God forbid, that you could not get flour in for 1 week. And then, of course, the third thing was fluctuation in commodity prices. In the bakery, the commodity was flour. I mean, that was your main thing. And so we bought out into contracts. So we would buy sometimes 6 months worth of flour, and we were locked in a price. Sometimes you locked in at a price, and 3 months after you locked into that price, well, the price of flour dropped. And so, okay, well, you bite the bullet, you lost on it. Sometimes we bought in at a price, and 2 months in, the price rose way above that, and so we win. So these were natural things that caused you to worry. But you know what? None of those things that I was worrying about were in my control. There's nothing I can do to affect the price of flour. There's nothing I can do if a hurricane came. Those things were out of my control. But those were the things that I worried the most. And the more I worried, the more frustrated I became. Let me quickly run on because we don't have a lot of time. So why worship? Because it has tremendous benefits. Worship is not only what we do on weekends. As I said, you worship, for example, when you mentor an employee. You worship when you commend a hardworking staff. You worship when you have team building exercises to build camaraderie. And when you do these things, here's what's going to happen in your life and in your business. One, you're going to have peace in that company. The best thing you can ever do as a business owner is to develop in an environment of peace within your staff. That's your greatest asset. And if there's a peaceful environment, they're going to work better. If there's calm and quiet in that environment, they're going to be more productive. Webster defines it as freedom from disturbance, as a state of security, freedom from disquieting or oppressive thoughts. That's a wonderful definition. But biblically, it is more than just the absence of conflict or a state of rest. It really means completeness. It means wholeness. It means that there's nothing deficient. There's no lack. And that's just wonderful. I remember 3 months after I left one of the companies I was at, and the gentleman who took over from me, he called me on the phone and he says, God, how did you stay so calm while you were running the company? He says, I've only been here for a couple of months, man, and I'm ready to quit. And that was simply, I had something within me that he did not have. I had this inner peace that I just did not allow outside influences to affect what was going on in the inside. I allowed what was happening on the inside of me to influence what was going on the outside. Second thing you will do if you practice worship is that you're going to experience joy. Worship actually is the spark that initiates joy. Now, remember, I said worship is not confined to what you do on weekends. And I list the things that you can do in order to worship. And if you do these things, you're going to find that there's going to be joy in addition to the peace. Thirdly, you need to have the proper perspective. And the proper perspective is this, that God is bigger than all of your problems. And I think we understand this intellectually, but worship reminds our hearts of this truth, that God is bigger than your problems since time existed. He always was bigger. And he's been solving problems for longer than our minds can comprehend. He is eternal and he holds all of the answers to any problem that you can have. And so if you're serving this big God, this all-knowing, this all-sufficient, this all-wise God, why are you worrying when you can take your problem to this place? Remember, I said now, you move in the direction of the thing that you're focused on. And if you focus your attention on God when you're going through your problems, I remember, I'll give you this illustration. There was a time when month end was a very difficult time for me, because that's the time when, you have your monthly reports run and, you're supposed to make X number of dollars in profit. And, when those profits aren't right, that's a problem, because now you got to go and sit in the boss's office and you got to explain as to why things are not going the way it was budgeted. And I had this frustrating day looking through, this general ledger that's 5 inches thick, and you're trying to find what could go wrong. And I'm just finding nothing. And literally, I went home frustrated. And I prayed that night, I said, God, you need to open my eyes so that I can see there's something not right here. But I kid you not, I walk into the office the next day. Within an hour, I saw the blatant problem. Have the proper perspective. God is bigger than your problem. When you see your problem in light of your big God, you're not going to worry about anything. Fourthly, and I'm going to close with this, focus. Worship is really a form of meditation, a way of focusing the mind on what's wrong. So focus on God. If you have a mind that tends to run full speed all the time, you're not going to have time for anything else. Slow down, focus in on the person who is perfect for whatever situation that you can, and he is going to take you through all of that. So make worship a daily experience, folks. Make it a daily experience. What could you do to make worship a daily experience? Every morning you wake up, spend some time in prayer, explaining, and listen to soft, quiet music, sometimes gospel music, sometimes it's meditation music. Meditate on scripture. Just take a passage of scripture and just roll that around in your head. I will keep in perfect peace whose mind is stable to me. What does that mean? What does that mean to me? And God is going to start to speak to you. You do the same thing when you're having problems at work. Meditate on what can I do to fix this, to solve this problem. Meditate on it, concentrate on it. Worship God with your work. Whatever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord. Don't work as if you're working for that boss, because your boss have a boss. And so I pray that you all would use this information to build up your business so that you can continue to be the small businesses that you intended to be, hiring half of the total workforce in our country, and becoming successful at what you do. Thank you, Felice, for giving me the opportunity.
And thank you, Mr. Roll, for accepting such a controversial topic to lead the Stress Management Technique series. And why I say it's a controversial topic, because many people do not associate worship with business. In fact, many religions do not ascribe to the prosperity gospel, and many successful entrepreneurs are atheists. So what do you say to an entrepreneur who is not a Christian or religious? What do you say to them is the alternative to worry?
There isn't, truthfully, there isn't an alternative to worry if you don't have something that's going to bring you inner peace. There's a reason why a lot of people who are worrying end up doing crazy things. They would, you get hooked on drugs, alcohol, whatever stuff to numb the pain, to cause you to forget the thing that you're worrying about. They resort to these things because as far as they're concerned, there is no answer. They've tried everything else and we can't find a solution. And so you resort to these things. Every one of us, we call ourselves, a Christian nation. That's what we say. We were created by someone. We did not just appear out of nowhere. Someone created us. And the person who created us, when we were created, he placed inside of us a piece of himself. The piece of himself was placed in us really to draw us back to him so that we don't ever forget him. And in the absence of reaching out for him, we're going to reach for an alternative source to replace him. That's why I said you will never, ever have an alternative for your worry, because you're going to look for something to fix your problem. And there isn't a solution to your problem outside of the person who created you.
Okay, so that was a personal question. I have one more personal question before Preston leads the question and answer period based on questions from the audience. So you've been extremely successful in your career. What if someone says, well, we could attribute that to your education, to your wisdom, as opposed to worship? How would you respond to a person who says that your success is really the result of your education, your expertise, and your level of wisdom?
I know plenty of people with more education than I have. And if you sat and you talk to them, you would really question whether they've been to school at all. My wife always makes the statement, she pokes fun at my education. And she always says that, you people who got these degrees and stuff, say you all go off to school, get your education, and you come back and we put you all to work in these banks and whatever. I got people who graduated from high school, who are better workers than some of you are, who are better thinkers than you some are. School does not, an education only says to a prospective employer that here is a trainable person. Education does not make you, it gives you the opportunity to get a door open for you. But once that door opens and you get in there, you now still have to be a person with integrity. Education isn't going to teach you integrity. You still have to be a person who is committed. Education is going to teach you commitment. So it opens the door for you, but it doesn't keep you in the room.
Well, thank you, Mr. Roll. Those are my questions. Preston, take it from there.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Roll. Thank you so much for a great presentation. So we have a few questions from our social media and as well as the Zoom chat here. I encourage everybody that if they have any questions, feel free to place them inside of our chat here on both of our Facebook and as well as our Zoom platforms here, and we'll gladly answer them. So the first question that comes from our social media platform that says, how can I improve my coping mechanisms for stressful situations? I know that we're a country for not having the best coping mechanisms. So I would repeat the question that says, how can I improve my coping mechanisms for stressful situations?
I just invite you to take all of those suggestions I made, and that's what I'm suggesting. One, to be focused, secondly, have a personal relationship with the Lord, to be able to get up in the morning and before your day even begins, to just look and say, Father, I just thank you for this day. I don't know what this day holds for me, but I just give my life to you. I don't know what problems I'm going to encounter, but you give me the wisdom to deal with. I don't know what problem other people are going to bring to me. Give me insights. Listen, these are sounds like very simple routine, but they are things that work. Get up in the morning before your day begins and just listen to some quiet music just to begin your day. I believe that the way your day begins is going to determine how your day will go throughout. To begin your day meditating on scripture, it's a perfect way to just quiet whatever disturbances you've got going on and just set your course at work. And for anyone who wishes, I'll be more than happy to, I'll send this, this presentation, because there's some things I didn't go into a lot of details on because of time constraint, but I'll send it to you. And these are some practical steps that I think will answer the question of the person who asked.
Thank you so much for that. Our second question that we have from our social media says, how can I incorporate mindful practices into my daily routine to reduce stress?
What kind of practices?
How can I incorporate mindful practices into my daily routine to reduce stress?
All of these questions are the same questions. I got the same answer to give you. Those 5 steps that I listened to, and I guess, Preston, if I get it to you or to Miss Bethel, we can get it to those who are watching. I don't know if I can give you there isn't a quick fix to any of these other than these steps that I gave to you. Don't focus on your problems. Don't ever focus on your problem. And the reason why I think we have issues is we spend too much time focusing on problems, and as opposed to, I'll give you this simple illustration that Dr. Miles Monroe, I learned from him. He says, it's amazing how we would get up in the morning or at the end of the day, and we go and we say, I'm going to go and I'm going to pray to the Lord. And so we spend 3 minutes, 5 minutes, however amount of time we pray, 15 minutes. And after we finish praying, he says, you know what we do? We get up and we walk away. So here am I, having a conversation with my father. You're telling your father the issues that you're having. You want him to do something about it. And the minute you finish telling him, you get up and walk. You say, whoa, 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 whoa. The Lord says, what? Wait, where are you going? You haven't listened to me. So when you have an issue, one of the best things you can ever do is meditate. Meditate. When you finish reading the scripture, for example, just sit back, the quietness of the moment, and just reflect on what you've read. Meditate on what you've read. When you finish meditating, you go into prayer, and you would be surprised at the revelation and the insights that you get. Some people say that, I find my little quiet spot when I want to have insights, and when I need a plan of action and on what to do and where to go. I sit down in my quiet, and sometimes, you can sit down and write. You can write pages and pages, and stuff are just flowing. That's because you are sitting down in your quiet time. You are meditating. You are being reflective, and in those quiet times, you're gaining insights on what it is you want to do. The best thing for anyone who is in business, who growing up, you have young children, you have a I have time for this.
I think Mr. Roll may be experiencing some technical difficulties. Excuse me for 1 second, just to ensure that he's good to go if he needs to be let back into the room. I do apologize, everybody. We have Mr. Roll back and ready to go. Mr. Roll, are you able to hear us? Yes, sir. I'm going to ask if you can unmute your mic for us, please.
Oh, yes, sorry. Okay, good.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Can we continue with our question and answer?
Yeah. Boy, I lost my track. I kind of lost my thought after I looked up and saw there's nothing on the screen. Yeah, so it's a very important that you spend time, quiet time, meditating, being reflective. Get your notepad, whatever that issue is that you're dealing with, just making notes, just allowing those thoughts to enter your mind. What can I do? How can I address this? You know, talking to the Lord about it, allowing him to give you insights. And you know, that's the way I've dealt with every portion of my life in the businesses that I've had the privilege of running. Quiet time, meditation, being reflective, going to the bigger person who can help me out when I can't. Because when you're frustrated, you're not going to have a clear mind. You're not going to be able to think clearly. You're not going to get insights if you're frustrated. The situation seems bigger than you and seems bigger than everyone around you. And so we just become frustrated. And when you become frustrated, the people who you're leading becomes frustrated because they can see frustration all over you. And that's why you always have to be at a heightened, I think, level when you are leading businesses, when you're owning businesses, and you are the one who is responsible for charting the course. You got to be way ahead of everybody else.
Yes, most certainly. Definitely agree with you, Mr. Roll. And leaning on to another question here, kind of sparked reminiscing on what you mentioned in your presentation earlier. You mentioned that certain persons work in certain environments and work environments that may be a bit high stress or may cause a bit of anxiety or other mental issues in that and how they deal with that. What is your perspective on persons who are clinically diagnosed with anxiety? Meditation and prayer may not be sufficient.
Yeah. People who are clinically diagnosed, yes, that is definitely a different sort of problem, and they would need to seek, professional help in that area. Without a doubt. And again, I'm a Christian, and I believe that there isn't a problem that cannot be addressed from a spiritual standpoint. And that's why in our field, there are Christian clinical psychologists that we refer our clients to, because we believe that the source of all of your problem could be dealt with at a spiritual level. But yes, I am in 100% agreement with you that there are people who are clinically depressed and who are, just have this serious issue of worry that's coming from a different place. Yes, they need to be treated differently.
Thank you so much for that answer. Going on to another social media question here that we have on Facebook. One more time, I'd like to encourage everybody that if you have a question, feel free to drop it here in our Zoom chat, as well as you can drop it on our Facebook live stream. So the question goes, in the corporate world, stress may come in the form of situations or people. How can we differentiate the two? And what are coping mechanisms that can be used to address both instances?
Well, there are no stress outside of people. So let's begin there. She said it could be caused from stress, or it could be caused from people. The source of all of our issues, other than in your case where you brought the previous question that talk about people who may be clinically diagnosed. We work in an environment, whatever the number of staff we may have. And I would tell you this: if you take one person and put them in a room, they're gonna find a problem with something. So you take two people and put them in a room, well, then that's multiplied, it's double, so it's 100%. Put three people in a room, every time you increase the number of persons, you are increasing the potential that there's gonna be a problem. You've got people who are coming from different backgrounds. They're coming from different situations at home. You got some people, they come to work one day. She is the mother of a child. The mother of the child had to be admitted to the hospital last night. She is there physically, but mentally she is not there because she's dealing with what at home. Some women come to work, they've been abused the night before, and they're bringing all of those packages to work. And they have to be dealt with. And so, yes, there will always be issues that you have to deal with. That's why the person who is at the head of that business, that they're not just someone who is in business to make money and move on, because you're going to find out that that company is not going to be a company where there is those things that I mentioned, peace, and joy, and there's a focus on where you're trying to go. It's important that the leader of the company is a person who understands what leadership is all about. And leadership is not just about making money. Leadership is about creating an environment where there is peace, where there is joy, where the employees understand that my boss really cares about me, even though he wants me being productive and making money. He is interested in my well-being. And if employees don't see that as the ultimate aim, you're going to find that the environment is going to be toxic. A toxic environment has a lot to do with leadership. If you have an employee, for example, and I'll give this, I think this is the best example I can give to make this point. I hired a young man, and when I hired him, very shortly after I hired him, he came into my office, he says, God, this is my department. I'm going to run it. I don't want you getting involved with the day-to-day operation. I don't want you getting involved with disciplining of staff. That's my job. And I looked at him and I said, yes, sir, at your service. And I left him alone. There were people in that department who did not even know I was in charge. When I walked through the department, they were asking, who is this guy? Why? Well, because I totally gave all of my confidence to this gentleman. Run my department, run it the way you want to see it. Whatever you do, I'm going to back you up with it. If you make a mistake, I'll let you know you make a mistake. But that created an atmosphere that triggered down from him. I placed the confidence in him. Those other people saw that triggered downhill. And right off the bat, that created this wonderful environment in the production department where there's cordiality and respect. I did not try to stifle him because I figure he is coming to take my job. No, I was working my way out of a job, even if it meant, because when you work your way out of a job, you're not working your way out of a job, you're working your way up to the next job. And I think that's what creates problem with people who are stressed out because they always see the next person as trying to take their job. I don't know if I answered the question.
No, that's totally fine. We love your wealth of knowledge. The questions are just flowing on in now. Another question from our Zoom chat says here, what is your perspective on persons who thrive in stressful environments? Is that going to end negatively? And what advice would you give them?
I don't, in all of the years I've been in the workforce, I don't know if you can thrive in the midst of stress. One person, if a person is seemingly thriving in stress, that means everybody else underneath that person they're having a hard time. And so you may do well in stress, but the aim in life is not for you to do well. The aim in life and business is for everyone around you to do well. I mean, that's the key to longevity in business. If it's only you one benefiting, that's going to be a short-lived company. And we want our businesses to be around for the long haul. Employees is just too great of an asset for us to be changing over employees, because every time you bring an employee in, that's an employee that you've got to train. Somebody has to take the time to train that person. And so you want an environment where it's like a well-oiled chain. Everything is just fitting into sprocket and chains, sprocket and chain. The train is going around the track. Everything is just working well. And that's not going to happen in stress, in a stressed environment. Stress affects productivity. Stress affects your ability to produce. Stress affects your ability to think clearly. And in most businesses, employees are worth something because of their ability to produce. And so if you are stressed all of the time, you're not going to be productive. You're not going to be productive.
Thank you for that answer, Mr. Rule. So our final two questions, we go with our Facebook question. It says here, stressing increases endorphins, and endorphin stimulates adrenaline. So in this way, can we say that a little stress is a good thing? Perhaps stress in difficult situations help us to think on our feet and be creative in difficult situations. Do you agree or disagree?
100% agree. A little bit of worry won't kill you. A little bit of stress won't kill you. It's when it is excessive. It's when it's never ending. It's when it's continuous where it's going to be a problem. But yes, when you have those endorphins as they are released, yes, you get energized. And that's good. That's good. That can cause you to work longer. It's almost like, taking a cup of coffee and you get that caffeine and you get this rush of energy, but you don't want to do that constantly. But yes, a little bit of worry, a little bit of stress is actually good for you. It is a motivation. And I had I have a lot of stories I can tell. I remember one of the promotion that I got, they'd sent me off to school. I came back home and we had made this huge investment in equipment, over $1 million, changing out all kind of equipment, and we did it all at one shot. And the old equipment that we had, they were not, very efficient. Something that should have taken 20 minutes was taking an hour in order to, anyway, don't want to go into all the kind of details. And so we brought all of these new equipment in, and, the equipment is working perfectly. And so in the past where it took an hour, this literally was taking 20 minutes, and everything was just getting out of control. And, we are throwing away product because, this new equipment, we're not used to this efficiency in the new equipment. And my boss came through the factory one day, and he looked at me and he says, Garth, do you think we gave a boy a man's job to do? That was like a sucker punch to my gut, because, he just told me, man, you ain't got it. And I walked off of the floor, went to my office and did a lot of meditation and thinking and all of that. And I came back down on the floor and I pulled my two supervisors together. I said, listen, man, this thing is getting away from us. Let's start from scratch and let's try and see if we can get this order. But that one statement that could have floored me, I used it to motivate me that I'm not going to fail, that I'm not going to allow him to think that I'm not man enough to do what they gave me to do. And that changed my whole dynamic and my way of thinking. And 5 years later, I was general manager of that company. So you determine, what stress is going to do to you. You determine that. Circumstances should never determine what happens to you. things that's happening on the outside should not determine what's happening on the inside. The reverse should be, let what's happening on the inside influence what's happening on the outside.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Rule. And the final question that we have here, we do know that some entrepreneurs and business owners tend to have their passion projects or even their way of life with supporting themselves through the business, taking over a lot of their time. And sometimes that 9-to-5 stigma kind of rolls into their personal time. What are some ways that entrepreneurs and business owners can prioritize their me time and reduce stress from a heavy workload?
I think everyone need to have a personal side project that you're into. We are all purpose driven. Outside of our 9-to-5 work, there should be something that you see of value that you can pour yourself into. And once you find that thing, whatever that thing is, for me, I like to, I've always had a keen interest in young people. And so that has always been my passion, working with young people. And you know, probably for 30 years, the last 30 years, young people was it for me. And so we do a lot of work with young people in our community, for example, you know, young people who, you know, ready to go to school in the morning and they don't have any food to eat. And so that became our passion. And so 3 days a week, you know, we provide breakfast for the school age children, the primary and high school children, because how does somebody go to school and learn while they're hungry? And that passion drove us to start this Feeding the School program. Find something that you are passionate about. You know, that takes the edge of all of the stress that you're dealing with 9-to-5 or 9-to-6, whatever amount of hours you work. That takes the edge off. That gives meaning. And it's amazing how even that in itself creates creativity in your minds to do other things. And so my simple answer is, find something that you're passionate about, that you can serve other people, that you're not doing this for you, whether it's volunteering with the Red Cross, whether it's, you know, working with Toastmasters, whatever it is, find a passion outside of work that you enjoy doing and go and do it.
Mr. Roll, thank you so much. We'll now have Miss Felice Bethel come on up where she gives us the trivia and closing remarks.
Well,
Thank you.
actually, I have one
question.
last question for Mr. Roll before the trivia question. So for entrepreneurs who are taking the first dive into this whole worship experience, do you recommend just simply expressing gratitude as the first step that they can take in the aspect of worship? And then a part B to that question, something I get asked frequently: should businesses pay tithes in gratitude, or should entrepreneurs pay tithes in gratitude?
Let's take the last question first. You may have to repeat the first question for me. I believe that all businesses should tithe out of what they earn. This is my personal belief, because I think, you know, tithing is the best illustration I have is, you know, back in the day, and a lot of you folks in Nassau wouldn't know about this, but I grew up on the Family Island. And back in the day, in order to get water, we had a hand pump. And so when you went to the well, whoever went to the well first, they always had a bucket there, and they left that bucket there filled with water for the next person who comes, in case you had to, here's what they usually, you had to prime the pump. And you prime the pump by pouring water down in the well in order to get that thing going. Now, tithes is like priming a pump. The principle of tithing is very simple. You give back as the Lord has blessed you. So if the Lord has blessed you, some people use their tithe in order to donate to the Red Cross on a monthly basis, in order to give to some social program, some feeding program. Whatever you do, and this is what I teach to my members with business, you tithe the income of your business. That's showing gratitude, worship, for what someone has done for you. And that in itself, I think, causes or unties God's hand so that he opens up other doors for you. You know, sometimes in business, you know, a week would come by and you don't know where these strange people or this new business came from. Just a flood of people came in and you know, you did $1,000 one day, and then all of a sudden one day you did $5,000. Where did that come from? And we look at it and say, well, you know, oh, you're just sounding a little spiritual and spooky and all the rest of that. Yeah, you know, my life is lived according to the Bible, and I try to make as practical as possible the things I read and learn to apply them to my life, because that's really what the Bible is all about. And so, but the second part of your question is, yes, I believe businesses should all tithe. Now, you got to remind me what the first portion was.
So let's just say I'm an entrepreneur and I've not been a churchgoer. I don't read the Bible. I don't pray. Would simply me just expressing gratitude, like thank you for the 5,000 customers, is that the first step in worship that I can take?
Well, there are, I think, there are phases of worship, but you cannot get to a latter phase of worship while you ignore step one in worship. Worship has to do with adoring someone who is deserving of all praise and honor, and that begins with God. He is the creator of all of us. He is the creator of everything that's in existence, and you honor him for that. You know, as simple as, you know, where the sun sits. If the sun, they said, you know, was 1 mile closer to the earth than it is, we'd all burn up. If it was 1 mile further away, we'd freeze to death. But someone was wise enough to put the sun exactly where the perfect distance from the earth that it needed to be. That the moon is the central star in the universe that keeps everything else from flying away. Well, how did someone get so wise to know exactly what he needed to place, where it needed to place, so that Jupiter and Mars and Saturn does not fly into nowhere? Somebody was wise enough. And you worship and you honor that for his goodness. You worship and you honor him for healing you when you get sick. You honor him and you worship him for providing for you and giving you a job. You do all of that. So now you step down and you're now talking about gratitude. And I talked a little bit about this. You can worship by showing gratitude to your staff because, you know, they were diligent. They're consistently at work. They demonstrate integrity. Yes, you can worship by honoring and rewarding them for their faithfulness to your business. So yes, you can. That is a form of worship when you show gratitude. You worship, you know, when you give someone a bonus because they worked hard and they add value to your company. Yes, that is indeed worship, but it actually begins with honoring and worship and honoring God. That's a different degree of worship that you're talking about when you get down now to worship on the job. And that's why I said worship is not only what you do on Saturday and Sunday. Worship can also be what you do Monday to Friday.
Thank you very, very much, Pastor Roll. Thank you. And I'm sure many of our listeners have been blessed by what you had to say. And we're going to further bless them by putting out a trivia question for which you can win a $100 prize to Motif Medical Spa. So this is the question that we would like the audience to answer, and whoever responds with the right answer will receive the $100 gift certificate. When Garth Roll was the regional port manager at Tropical Shipping, the company's annual sales increased from $24 million to $50 million over a blank year period. The four possible answers: A, a 10-year period; B, 15-year period; C, 20-year period; D, 25-year period. So I'll repeat that question. When Garth Roll was the regional port manager at Tropical Shipping, the company's annual sales increased from $24 million to $50 million over a blank year period. A, 10-year period; B, 15-year period; C, 20-year period; and D, 25-year period. Preston, I hope you've been monitoring the chat. Who was the first person to respond 10 or A?
So according to the chat here, I have Miss Christine. Christine, if you can just drop your full contact information or your full name here.
Or just her email address, and then we will follow up with you tomorrow on how you can redeem your $100 gift certificate from the Motif Medical Spa. So thank you to Motif, and thank you, Pastor Roll, again.